The art of ignoring people. Dark psychology that makes others respect you. Listen carefully. Most people lose respect not because they are weak, but because they give their attention away too easily. They explain too much. They respond too fast. They chase approval from people who never earned it. But powerful people understand something different. Attention is power. And the moment you stop giving that power away, everything changes. People who ignored you start noticing you. People who disrespected you become careful around you. People who took you for granted suddenly feel your absence. Because silence creates curiosity. Distance creates value. And the truth is simple. The person who controls their attention controls the relationship. In this audiobook, you will learn the psychological power of ignoring, when to use it, how to use it, and why it forces the world to respect you.
Attention is your most valuable currency. Let's begin with a truth most people never fully understand. Your attention is your most valuable currency. Not your money, not your job title, not even your intelligence. Your attention. Where you place it determines the quality of your life. Where you waste it determines the level of respect you receive. And most people give it away for free. They respond instantly. They explain themselves to everyone. They jump into every argument. They react to every opinion. And then they wonder why people don't respect them. Here is the rule. What is always available is rarely respected. Read that again in your mind. What is always available is rarely respected. That applies to products, that applies to opportunities, and most importantly, that applies to people. When you are always available, people stop valuing your presence. That's not cruelty. That's psychology. Human beings value scarcity. They chase what feels limited. They respect what feels selective. And they overlook what feels unlimited. You have a choice. You can continue giving your attention to everyone and everyone. Or you can begin treating it like the rare, powerful resource it truly is. That's the key.
Attention is power. Attention is not just focus. Attention is power. Every conversation you enter, you give power. Every argument you join, you give power. Every insult you react to, you give power. Most people never notice this. They believe reacting makes them strong. But in reality, reacting often makes them predictable. And predictable people are easy to control. Look around you. The people who react emotionally to everything are the easiest people to manipulate. Insult them, they explode. Ignore them, they chase. Challenge them, they panic. Why? Because they have no control over where their attention goes. But powerful people understand something different. They control their attention the same way a general controls an army. Carefully, strategically, deliberately. They ask one simple question before reacting.
Does this deserve my attention? Most of the time, the answer is no. The illusion of instant response. Modern culture has trained people to respond instantly. Text messages, emails, social media. Everyone expects immediate access to your attention. And the moment you give it, your value drops. Because instant availability signals something powerful. It signals that you have nothing more important to do. Think about it. If someone replies to every message within seconds, what does that imply? It implies they are waiting. Waiting for validation. Waiting for conversation. Waiting for attention. But people who are focused on meaningful goals rarely respond instantly. They are busy building, busy thinking, busy improving. And that scarcity changes how others perceive them. The same message that looks ordinary coming from someone always available suddenly looks important when it comes from someone selective. This is not manipulation. This is perception. And perception shapes respect. You don't need their permission to value your time. The workplace example. Let's look at a simple, real-world example. Two co-workers, both equally skilled, both equally intelligent, but their behavior is different. The first co-worker replies instantly to every email, every message, every request, every small task. They try to prove their dedication by always being available. But what happens? People start piling work on them. More emails, more requests, more interruptions. Why? Because they made themselves the easiest target. Now look at the second co-worker. They respond thoughtfully, but not instantly. They prioritize their tasks. They don't react to every request immediately. And something interesting happens. People begin assuming they are busy, important, focused, in demand. The same delay that would look lazy in one person suddenly looks strategic in another. Why? Because attention signals value, and value shapes perception. It's not about arrogance. It's about discipline. The attention economy. We live in what experts call the attention economy. Every company is fighting for your focus. Social media platforms, news outlets, streaming services, they all compete for one thing: your attention. Because whoever controls your attention controls your behavior. Think about it. If you spend 3 hours scrolling through arguments online, your energy disappears. If you spend 3 hours learning a skill, your life improves. Same time, different attention, different outcome. That's the key. Your attention determines your direction. And if you don't control it, someone else will. You have a choice. You can spend your life reacting to the noise of the world, or you can focus on the few things that truly matter. The respect equation. Respect is not created through constant effort to please others. Respect is created through boundaries.
And one of the strongest boundaries you can build is attention control. When people know they cannot easily access your time, they become more careful with it. They speak more thoughtfully. They behave more respectfully. Because they understand something subtle. Your attention is not guaranteed. And anything that is not guaranteed becomes valuable. But most people never reach this point. They are afraid of disappointing others, afraid of being seen as rude, afraid of missing out. So they say yes to everything. They reply to everything. They react to everything. And slowly, their attention becomes diluted, scattered, weak. But powerful people do the opposite. They say no, often, without guilt. You don't need their permission to protect your focus.
The discipline of selective attention. Let's be clear. Ignoring people is not about arrogance. It's about discipline. You are not ignoring people because you think you are better. You are ignoring distractions because your time is limited. There is a difference, a massive difference. Your life will only move forward if your attention moves forward. Every hour you give to negativity is an hour stolen from your growth. Every argument you entertain is energy taken from your goals. So the question becomes simple. Where should your attention go? Into building your future, into developing your skills, into strengthening relationships that matter. Everything else? Noise. You have a choice. You can chase every distraction, or you can choose your focus with discipline. That's the key.
The fear of being ignored. Here is another psychological truth. Most people are terrified of being ignored. They fear it more than criticism. Why? Because ignoring removes validation, and validation is addictive. But once you understand this fear, something powerful happens. You stop chasing approval. You stop reacting just to be noticed. You stop explaining yourself to people who never cared to understand you. And that shift changes how others see you. Because when someone stops seeking attention, they become interesting, mysterious, unpredictable. And unpredictability creates influence. Not because you are playing games, but because you are no longer desperate for validation. Practical rules for protecting your attention. Let's make this practical. Here are a few simple rules. Rule number 1. Stop responding immediately to everything.
Let's bring everything together. Your attention is your currency. Every time you give it away carelessly, you lower its value. Every time you protect it, its value increases.
You don't need their permission to control where your attention goes. You don't need their approval to focus on your goals. And you certainly don't need to react to every voice demanding your time. Remember the rule. What is always available is rarely respected. But what is selective, what is disciplined, what is controlled, becomes powerful. And when you master your attention, something remarkable happens. People start paying attention to you, not because you asked them to, but because you stopped chasing them. You stopped reacting. You stopped explaining. You became selective. And selectivity creates respect. You've begun to understand the currency of attention. But controlling attention requires another powerful skill. The ability to stop justifying yourself to the world. Because every explanation weakens your authority. And that brings us to the next lesson. Stop explaining yourself to everyone. There is a silent habit that destroys authority faster than almost anything else. Over-explaining. Most people do it without even noticing. They justify their choices. They defend their boundaries. They explain their opinions again and again. And every explanation weakens their position. Listen carefully. When you constantly explain yourself, you are not communicating strength. You are signaling doubt. You are asking for approval. And people can feel it immediately. That's the uncomfortable truth. Because confidence behaves very differently. Confidence speaks once. Insecurity explains forever. That's the rule. And the moment you understand this rule, your entire communication style begins to change. You stop performing for approval. You stop defending every decision. You stop trying to convince everyone to agree with you. Because you finally understand something powerful. You don't need their permission.
The approval trap. Most people explain themselves because they want to be understood. That sounds reasonable. But beneath that desire is something deeper. Approval. They want everyone to agree. They want everyone to feel comfortable. They want everyone to accept their choices. But here is reality. Not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will agree with you. And not everyone deserves an explanation. You have a choice. You can spend your life trying to convince everyone. Or you can start living according to your own standards. That's the key. Powerful people do not waste energy chasing universal approval. They make decisions. They communicate clearly. And then they move forward. No debate. No endless justification. Just clarity. Why over-explaining signals weakness? Imagine two people saying the same thing. Person number one says, "I can't come to the meeting tomorrow because I have another commitment." Short, clear, direct. Now imagine person number two. "I'm really sorry. I wish I could come, but tomorrow is complicated and I have some other things going on, and I feel bad cancelling, but maybe next time." Do you see the difference? The first person communicates certainty. The second person communicates anxiety. Both said no, but the energy is completely different. The first person
sounds decisive. The second person sounds unsure. And uncertainty invites pressure. People start negotiating, questioning, pushing, because they sense hesitation. It's not about communication skills, it's about discipline. The discipline to say what needs to be said, once, and then stop.
The hidden cost of over-explaining. Every unnecessary explanation creates three problems. First, it invites judgment. The more details you provide, the more opportunities people have to criticize your reasoning. Second, it weakens your boundaries. When people sense you are uncomfortable saying no, they will keep pushing. And third, it drains your energy. You spend time defending decisions that should never have required defense in the first place. Think about how many conversations in your life follow this pattern. Someone questions your decision. You explain. They challenge your explanation. You explain again. The conversation keeps going, and suddenly you are defending a simple choice like it is a courtroom trial. That is the trap. You don't need their permission to make decisions about your life. The discipline of the simple answer. Powerful communicators follow one simple rule. Say it once, say it clearly, then stop talking. That's the key. Because every additional explanation reduces your authority. When your answer is short, people accept it faster. When your answer becomes long, people start searching for weaknesses. So your goal is simple. Practice the discipline of the simple answer. I'm not available. That doesn't work for me. I've already decided. These sentences are powerful because they are complete. They leave no room for negotiation. They communicate.
Let's look at a common situation. Someone invites you to an event you don't want to attend. Most people respond like this. I'd love to come, but I'm really tired, and I have work, and I'm trying to focus on other things. And suddenly, they are explaining their entire life schedule. But confident people do something simpler. They say, thanks for inviting me, but I won't be able to make it. That's it. No long story, no excuses. Just clarity. If the person respects you, they will accept it. If they push for more explanation, that reveals something important. They were not asking for an answer. They were trying to negotiate your boundaries. And boundaries are not debates. Boundaries are decisions. You don't need their permission. This lesson becomes even more important in the workplace. Many people struggle to refuse extra work. A manager asks for another task. A co-worker asks for help. And instead of giving a clear answer, people start explaining. I'm already busy, but maybe I can try to fit it in. Now they are trapped, because they signaled uncertainty. But confident professionals behave differently. They say, I can't take that on right now. My schedule is full. Short, professional, direct. No apology for having priorities. Because priorities are not mistakes. Priorities are discipline. It's not about arrogance. It's about clarity. Boundaries without debate. Here is another powerful concept. Not every boundary requires a discussion. Some boundaries are simply statements. I'm not comfortable with that. I don't participate in conversations like that. I've decided to focus on other things. You don't need to explain your values. You live them. And when someone challenges those values, the answer is not more explanation. The answer is consistency. Because people eventually respect what you consistently enforce. That's the key. Respect grows from behavior, not persuasion. The fear of being misunderstood. Many people over-explain because they fear being misunderstood. They want everyone to see their intentions. They want everyone to agree with their logic. But here is a difficult truth. Some people will misunderstand you no matter how clearly you explain. Some people will disagree no matter how strong your reasoning is. And some people are not trying to understand you at all. They are trying to control you. You have a choice. You can spend hours explaining yourself to people who already decided to disagree. Or you can protect your time. Because your time matters. Your energy matters. And your attention.
The confidence formula. Confidence in communication is simple. Not easy, but simple. Speak clearly. Speak briefly. Then stop. No rambling, no backtracking, no nervous explanations. That silence after your statement, that silence is powerful. Because it communicates certainty. And certainty makes people pause. It forces them to process your words instead of searching for weaknesses. Remember the rule. Confidence speaks once. Insecurity explains forever. That's the key. Practicing the skill. Like any discipline, this takes practice. You will feel uncomfortable at first. Your mind will want to add more explanation, more details, more justification. Resist that impulse. When you say no, let the sentence end. When you state a decision, let it stand. Silence is not awkward. Silence is strength. The more comfortable you become with it, the more authority your words carry. You have a choice. You can keep talking until people respect you. Or you can start speaking with precision and let your silence do the rest. The transformation. Imagine what your life looks like when you master this skill. Fewer arguments. Fewer unnecessary conversations. More clarity. More respect. Because people quickly learn something about you. You are not easily pressured. You are not easily manipulated. And you do not feel the need to justify every decision. That reputation changes everything. People approach you differently. They speak more carefully.
They respect your time more. Now you understand how powerful silence can be in communication. But silence itself holds an even deeper psychological power. When used correctly, silence can shift the entire dynamic of a conversation. It can create tension, curiosity, even respect. So now it's time to explore that power. You stopped explaining. Now you must master the next level of control. Now you understand how powerful silence can be in communication. But silence itself holds an even deeper psychological power. When used correctly, silence can shift the entire dynamic of a conversation. It can create tension, curiosity, even respect. So now it's time to explore that power. You stopped explaining. Now you must master the next level of control.
Silence is a psychological weapon. Most people believe power in conversation comes from words. They believe the strongest person is the one who speaks the most, the one who argues the hardest, the one who explains the longest. But the truth is the opposite. The real power in communication is not speaking. The real power is silence. Silence is uncomfortable. Silence creates tension. And because it creates tension, most people try to escape it immediately. They fill the silence with words, explanations, apologies, justifications, anything to remove that pressure. But powerful people understand something most others never learn. Silence is not empty. Silence is strategic. Silence forces people to confront themselves. That's the key. The habit of overreacting. Most people react immediately when challenged. Someone criticizes them. They defend themselves instantly. Someone insults them. They respond emotionally. Someone questions their decisions. They begin explaining. But this habit gives away power. Because reaction reveals something important. It reveals emotional vulnerability. If someone can provoke you and instantly get a reaction, they have influence over you. They can control the conversation. They can guide your emotions. But when you respond with silence, something different happens. The person who expected your reaction suddenly faces uncertainty. They lose their script. They lose their control. Because silence disrupts their expectations. And disruption creates psychological discomfort. That discomfort often causes them to expose their real intentions. Remember this phrase. Silence forces people to confront themselves. That's the key. Silence during conflict. Let's talk about arguments. Arguments are emotional storms. Two people speaking faster and louder. Interrupting. Defending. Attacking. Most arguments escalate because both people are reacting emotionally. But imagine something different. One person stays calm. One person stops responding emotionally. One person simply listens. Silence in relationships. This principle becomes especially powerful in relationships. Imagine a common scenario. One partner becomes frustrated. They begin criticizing, complaining, raising their voice. The other partner reacts immediately. They defend themselves. They argue. They escalate the conflict. Now both people are emotional. Both people are angry. And the situation spirals out of control. But imagine a different response. The second partner stays calm. They listen. They do not interrupt. They do not argue. They allow the other person to speak. And something surprising happens. Without resistance, the emotional storm begins losing intensity. Because the person expressing anger expected a fight. They expected resistance. They expected emotional reaction. When they don't get it, their energy shifts. They slow down. They begin reflecting on what they are saying. And often, they calm themselves. Why? Because silence creates reflection. Silence forces people to confront themselves. That's the key. Silence against provocation. There will always be people who try to provoke you. They criticize. They mock. They challenge. Sometimes they are testing your boundaries. Sometimes they simply enjoy creating conflict. But responding emotionally gives them exactly what they want. Attention. Drama. Control. When you react, you reward their behavior. But when you remain silent, you remove the reward. And without reward, the behavior loses power. Think about it. Have you ever argued with someone who refused to react emotionally? It becomes frustrating. You push harder. You try new insults. You search for weaknesses. But eventually you realize something. You are arguing alone. And arguing alone is exhausting. That's why silence works. It shifts the emotional burden back to the other person. You don't need their permission to disengage. The power of the pause. Silence is not only useful in conflict, it is powerful in everyday conversations. One of the most effective communication techniques is the pause. When someone asks you a question, pause before answering. Not for dramatic effect, but for clarity. Most people respond instantly. They speak before thinking. They rush to fill space. But when you pause, something different happens. People pay attention. Your words gain weight because they are deliberate, intentional, thoughtful. A short pause signals confidence. It communicates that you are not rushed, not pressured, not desperate to speak. That pause gives your words authority, and authority commands respect. It's not about charisma. It's about discipline. Silence reveals truth.
Training yourself to use silence. Like every discipline in this audiobook, silence requires practice. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your mind will want to react, to defend, to explain. Resist that impulse.
Practice listening without interrupting. Practice pausing before answering. Practice letting criticism pass without immediate response. You will notice something interesting. Most conflicts lose their power when you refuse to escalate them. Most provocations disappear when they receive no reaction. And most conversations become clearer when you speak less. You have a choice. You can continue reacting automatically, or you can respond with intention. It's not about suppressing emotion. It's about mastering it. Silence and self-control. At its core, silence is not about other people. It's about self-control. The ability to remain calm when others are emotional. The ability to listen when others expect arguments. The ability to think before speaking. These abilities signal strength, because true strength is quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't panic. It doesn't rush to prove itself. True strength observes, waits, and speaks only when necessary. That discipline changes how people perceive you. They begin choosing their words more carefully. They approach conversations with more respect, because they know something about you. You are not easily provoked. You are not easily manipulated. And you are not easily controlled. That reputation is powerful.
The core lesson. Let's bring this lesson together. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. Control of your reactions, control of your emotions, control of the conversation. When used correctly, silence creates tension, and tension creates awareness. People begin examining their own behavior, their own words, their own intentions, because silence forces people to confront themselves. That's the key. And once you master this discipline, your presence changes. You speak less, but when you do speak, people listen, because your words are rare, and rare things are valuable. But silence is only one part of the equation. Attention and silence both rely on a deeper psychological principle: scarcity. The simple truth that people value what is limited and ignore what is always available. You've learned to control your words. Now you must learn to control your availability. Because scarcity transforms perception, and perception shapes respect.
The scarcity principle of respect. There is a psychological rule that quietly controls human behavior. A rule that marketers understand. A rule that powerful leaders understand. A rule that confident individuals live by every day. Scarcity creates value. The rarer something becomes, the more people want it. The more limited something appears, the more attention it attracts. This rule applies to products. Limited editions sell faster. Exclusive memberships feel more valuable. Rare opportunities feel more exciting. But here is the deeper truth. This rule also applies to people. Your availability determines your perceived value, and constant availability destroys respect. That may sound uncomfortable, but psychology confirms it again and again. When something is always accessible, the mind stops valuing it. When something becomes selective, the mind becomes curious. Scarcity creates curiosity. That's the key. The problem of being too available. Most people try to earn respect by being available all the time. They answer every message immediately. They say yes to every invitation. They respond to every request. They make themselves easy to reach, easy to interrupt, easy to access. They believe this behavior makes them likable, helpful,
reliable. But something unexpected happens. Instead of gaining respect, they become taken for granted. Their time becomes cheap, their presence becomes ordinary, and their attention becomes expected. Because people unconsciously assume something. If you are always available, you must not be in high demand. You must not be busy. You must not have strong priorities. That assumption lowers your perceived value. You have a choice. You can. Why humans chase what feels rare? The human brain evolved to notice scarcity. Thousands of years ago, scarce resources meant survival. Food, shelter, opportunities. Anything rare was important. And that ancient instinct still controls modern behavior. When people sense scarcity, their attention increases. Their curiosity increases. Their desire increases. Think about a simple example. Imagine a restaurant with empty tables. Now imagine a restaurant with a long waiting line. Which one feels more valuable? Which one feels more exciting? Which one makes you curious? The crowded one. Why? Because scarcity signals demand, and demand signals value. The same rule applies to your time. If everyone has unlimited access to you, your presence loses its impact. But when your time becomes selective, people start noticing it. They begin respecting it. They begin appreciating it. Scarcity creates curiosity. Scarcity in friendships. Let's look at friendships. Many people believe strong friendships require constant availability. They answer every message immediately. They show up to every gathering. They respond to every request. But this behavior can slowly create an imbalance. One person becomes the always available friend, the reliable one, the predictable one. And predictability removes excitement. It removes curiosity. It removes the sense that your presence is valuable. Now imagine a different dynamic. You value your friendships, but you also value your time. You are present when you are present, but you are not always available. You have priorities, goals, commitments. And something interesting happens. Your presence becomes more meaningful because it is not constant, it is intentional. People appreciate moments with you more because those moments are not unlimited. That's the key. Scarcity in dating and attraction. Scarcity plays an even stronger role in attraction. Many people believe attraction grows through constant communication, endless texting, constant availability, immediate replies. But this behavior often creates the opposite effect. It removes mystery. It removes anticipation. It removes curiosity. And without curiosity, attraction fades. Because attraction thrives on discovery, on imagination, on the unknown. When someone reveals everything about themselves immediately, the sense of exploration disappears. But when someone reveals themselves gradually, curiosity grows. Their presence becomes intriguing. Their silence becomes interesting. Their absence becomes noticeable. Scarcity creates curiosity. This is not about playing games.
It is about respecting your own time, respecting your own life, and refusing to make someone the center of your attention too quickly. You don't need their permission to move at your own pace.
Scarcity in the workplace. The scarcity principle also shapes professional respect. In many workplaces, people believe constant availability proves dedication. They answer emails instantly. They accept every task. They respond to every request. They make themselves endlessly accessible. But this behavior often leads to overload. More tasks, more interruptions, more pressure. Because when you demonstrate unlimited availability, people assume unlimited capacity. Now imagine a professional who behaves differently. They respond thoughtfully, but not instantly. They prioritize their tasks. They set boundaries around their time. And suddenly, something changes. Their time appears structured, valuable, limited. People begin respecting their schedule. They become more careful when requesting their attention. Because scarcity signals importance. It's not about arrogance. It's about discipline. The fear of creating scarcity. Many people resist this principle. They fear that becoming less available will make them seem rude, selfish, unfriendly. But that fear often comes from misunderstanding. Scarcity is not about ignoring people completely. It's about intentional availability. Being present when it matters. Being absent when it doesn't. You still care. You still connect. The power of strategic absence. One of the most powerful forms of scarcity is absence. Not a permanent absence, strategic absence. Stepping away from conversations that waste your energy. Taking time away from environments that drain your focus. Creating space in your schedule to focus on meaningful goals. And something interesting happens when you do this. People notice. They notice your absence. They notice the difference in the environment. They notice the value you bring when you return. Because absence highlights presence. When someone is always around, their presence becomes invisible. But when someone is occasionally absent, their presence becomes noticeable. Scarcity creates curiosity. The discipline of saying no. Scarcity cannot exist without boundaries. And boundaries require one difficult skill: saying no. Most people avoid saying no because they want to be liked. They want to avoid conflict. They want to appear cooperative. But constant yes destroys scarcity. And without scarcity, respect disappears. Because if you say yes to everything, your time has no limits. And if your time has no limits, it has no value. Saying no protects your scarcity. It protects your focus. It protects your energy. And most importantly, it protects
Scarcity and self-respect.
At its core, scarcity is not about controlling other people. It is about respecting yourself, respecting your time, respecting your goals, respecting your energy. When you treat your time as valuable, others begin doing the same. But when you treat your time as disposable, others follow that example. Your behavior teaches people how to treat you. That's the key. Scarcity communicates self-respect, and self-respect invites external respect. Building a life that creates scarcity. True scarcity does not come from pretending to be busy. It comes from actually building a meaningful life. A life filled with goals, learning, growth, purpose. When your life is full of meaningful activity, your time naturally becomes limited. You are not avoiding people. You are building something valuable. And people can feel that difference. They sense your focus.
The core lesson. Let's bring this chapter together. Scarcity is not manipulation. Scarcity is discipline. The discipline to protect your time. The discipline to prioritize your life. The discipline to avoid constant availability. Because constant availability kills curiosity. And curiosity fuels respect. Remember the rule. Scarcity creates curiosity. You have a choice. You can make yourself endlessly accessible, or you can build a life that makes your time valuable. One path leads to exhaustion. The other leads to respect. And once you understand scarcity, you begin seeing something clearly. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every criticism deserves your reaction. Not every voice deserves your time. Because your attention is limited. And limited resources must be protected. You mastered scarcity. Now it's time to master another discipline. The discipline of ignoring unnecessary opinions. Because reacting to every voice weakens your authority. And silence toward meaningless criticism strengthens it.
Stop reacting to every opinion. Most people live under a silent form of control. Not physical control. Not financial control. Emotional control. And the people controlling them are often strangers. Strangers on the internet. Co-workers with opinions. Family members with criticism. Why does this happen? Because most people react to every opinion they hear. Every comment triggers them. Every criticism demands a response. Every disagreement feels like a personal attack. And the moment you react emotionally to every opinion, you lose control of your own state of mind. Because now, your emotions are being managed by other people. Think about that for a moment. If someone across the room can say a few words and instantly change your mood, they influence you. If a stranger online can post a comment and ruin your day, they have control over your attention. That is not a strength. That is vulnerability.
But there is another way to live. A disciplined way. A way that powerful individuals practice.
The illusion that every opinion matters. One of the greatest illusions in modern society is the belief that every opinion deserves a response. Social media has trained people to believe this. Every comment must be answered. Every criticism must be defended. Every disagreement must become a debate. But this belief creates emotional chaos. Because opinions are unlimited, there will always be another comment, another disagreement, another voice telling you what you should do. If you try to respond to every opinion, you will spend your entire life reacting. Instead of building, instead of improving, instead of living. You have a choice. You can treat every opinion as important, or you can become selective. That's the key. Not every voice deserves access. Here is a powerful rule to remember. Access to your attention must be earned. Not everyone deserves a response. Not everyone deserves an explanation. And not everyone deserves a reaction. This idea may feel uncomfortable at first, but it is necessary for emotional independence. Think about it. Would you allow every stranger on the street to walk into your house and rearrange your furniture? Of course not. But many people allow strangers to rearrange their emotions every day. They allow random opinions to dictate their mood, their confidence, their focus. And this constant reaction weakens them. You don't need their permission to ignore meaningless opinions. Nowhere is this problem more visible than on social media. A stranger writes a negative comment. Immediately, someone feels the need to respond, to defend, to argue, to prove they are right. And suddenly hours are wasted in an endless debate. Two people trying to win an argument that changes nothing. This is the trap. Because arguments online rarely produce growth. They produce attention. And attention is exactly what many critics want. Your reaction becomes their reward. The moment you respond emotionally, they win. But when you ignore them, something interesting happens. The conflict disappears. Because arguments require two participants. Without reaction, there is no battle. That's the key. The discipline of choosing battles. Powerful people do not fight every battle. They choose carefully. They ask one simple question. Does this matter in the long run? If the answer is no, they move on. They protect their focus. They protect their energy. They protect their attention. Because they understand something most people forget. Every argument costs energy. Every reaction costs time. And energy spent on meaningless conflict is energy stolen from meaningful progress. You have a choice. You can fight every small battle, or you can focus on the war that actually matters. That's the key.
Workplace gossip and criticism. Let's talk about a real-world situation. The workplace. Every workplace contains opinions, gossip, criticism. Someone is questioning your decisions. Someone is commenting on your performance.
Many people feel the need to respond immediately. They defend themselves. They argue. They try to correct every rumor. But this approach often backfires because gossip feeds on attention. The more you react, the more the conversation continues. But confident professionals behave differently. They stay focused on results. They let their work speak. They refuse to participate in unnecessary drama. And eventually, something happens. Results become louder than opinions. Silence becomes stronger than defense. Because success is difficult to argue with. It's not about ignoring feedback. Constructive criticism matters. But random gossip does not. You must learn the difference. Family opinions and expectations. Family opinions can be even more challenging. Family members often feel entitled to comment on your life. Your career. Your decisions. And because they are
Emotional discipline. At the core of this lesson is emotional discipline. The ability to hear criticism without reacting instantly. The ability to observe opinions without internalizing them. The ability to remain calm when others try to provoke you. This is not easy, but it is powerful. Because emotional discipline creates stability, and stability creates confidence. When people realize they cannot easily trigger you, they stop trying. Because provoking someone who refuses to react becomes boring. And people rarely continue behavior that produces no result. That's the key. The strength of indifference. One of the most powerful responses to meaningless criticism is indifference. Not anger, not defense. Indifference. Indifference communicates something important. This opinion does not affect me. And when someone senses that their words have no emotional impact, their influence disappears. Because influence requires reaction. Without reaction, there is no leverage. Indifference protects your mental space. It allows you to focus on your goals instead of defending your ego. It's not about being cold. It's about being focused.
Training yourself not to react. This discipline requires practice. Your instincts will push you to respond, to defend yourself, to prove your point. Pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself a simple question. Does this deserve my energy? Most of the time, the answer is no. And when the answer is no, walk away. Ignore the comment. Ignore the criticism. Ignore the argument. That silence is not weakness. That silence is control. It shows you are not easily manipulated. You have a choice. You can react automatically, or you can respond intentionally. That's the key.
the transformation. Imagine living with this discipline. Imagine hearing criticism without losing focus. Imagine seeing negative comments without an emotional reaction. Imagine observing opinions without feeling the need to defend yourself. Your life becomes quieter, clearer.
The core lesson. Let's bring everything together. Not every opinion matters. Not every criticism deserves a response. And not every voice deserves your attention. Because your attention is a limited resource. And limited resources must be protected. Remember the rule. If everything triggers you, everyone controls you. But when you choose your reactions carefully, something changes. You regain control. Control of your emotions. Control of your attention. Control of your life. You have a choice. You can keep reacting. The core lesson. Let's bring everything together. Not every opinion matters. Not every criticism deserves a response. And not every voice deserves your attention. Because your attention is a limited resource. And limited resources must be protected. Remember the rule. If everything triggers you, everyone controls you. But when you choose your reactions carefully, something changes. You regain control. Control of your emotions. Control of your attention. Control of your life. You have a choice. You can keep reacting to every opinion. Or you can begin ignoring the noise. Emotional detachment creates authority. Most people believe power comes from speaking louder, reacting faster, or proving themselves in every situation. That belief is wrong. Real authority comes from something much quieter. It comes from emotional control. More specifically, it comes from emotional detachment. Because emotionally reactive people are easy to manipulate.
calm individuals are harder to control. That is the rule. And once you understand this rule, you start seeing it everywhere. The person who gets angry first usually loses. The person who stays calm usually wins. Not because they shouted louder, but because they refused to surrender control of their emotions. And control of emotion is control of power. Remember this phrase. Repeat it. Remember why emotional reactivity makes you weak. Let's start with a hard truth. If someone can trigger your emotions whenever they want, they control you. Not partially, completely. If a comment ruins your day, if criticism makes you defensive, if a stranger's opinion makes your heart race, then they are pulling the strings. You might think you are defending yourself, but in reality, you are reacting. And reaction is surrender. You have a choice. Always. You can react, or you can observe. One leads to emotional chaos. The other leads to authority. Because when people cannot control your emotions, they cannot control you. That's the key. Emotional detachment is not coldness. Many people misunderstand emotional detachment. They think it means becoming cold, heartless, uncaring. That is not the point. Detachment does not mean you don't care. It means you decide what deserves your energy. There is a difference. A massive difference. Detached people are not emotionless. They are selective. They refuse to waste emotional energy on things that do not matter. They choose their reactions.
The psychological advantage of calm. Watch powerful people closely. In business, in leadership, in negotiation. They rarely panic. They rarely react instantly. They pause. They observe. They stay calm. Why? Because calmness creates psychological pressure. When someone attacks you emotionally and you remain calm, they become uncomfortable. They expect a reaction. They expect anger. They expect defense. But when none of that happens, their strategy collapses. Your calm becomes control. And suddenly, the power dynamic shifts. Again, remember the rule. The calmer you are, the more powerful you appear. That's the key. Manipulators depend on your emotions. Manipulative people understand something most people don't. Emotion is leverage. They provoke you intentionally. They insult. They criticize. They gossip. They create drama. Why?
Because if they can make you emotional, they control the situation. Angry people make bad decisions. Defensive people reveal insecurity. Emotional people expose their weaknesses. Manipulators wait for those moments. But calm individuals ruin that strategy. Calm people are unpredictable. Calm people are difficult to manipulate. Calm people force others to reveal themselves first. That's power. And you don't need their permission to have it.
The discipline of the pause. The simplest tool for emotional detachment is something almost nobody uses: the pause. Before reacting, pause. Before replying, pause. Before defending yourself, pause. Most people operate on emotional autopilot. Stimulus, reaction. Instant. But powerful people break that pattern. They create space between the event and their response. That space is where discipline lives. Someone criticizes you. Pause. Someone insults you. Pause. Someone tries to provoke you. Pause. Inside that pause, you ask one question: does this deserve my energy? If the answer is no, you ignore it. If the answer is yes, you respond calmly, never emotionally. You have a choice. That's the key. Example: workplace manipulation. Let's look at a common scenario: workplace criticism. A colleague says something passive-aggressive. Maybe they question your work. Maybe they make a sarcastic remark in front of others. Most people react immediately. They defend themselves. They argue. They escalate the tension. But the calm person does something different. They observe. They stay relaxed. They speak slowly. They respond without emotion. Or sometimes, they don't respond at all. Because not every comment deserves oxygen.
Emotional control in social situations. Now look at social environments, friend groups, family gatherings, social media. These places are emotional traps. Someone disagrees with you. Someone criticizes your choices. Someone judges your lifestyle. Most people feel the need to explain themselves, to justify, to defend. But you don't need their permission. You don't need their validation. You don't need their approval. You have a choice. You can explain, or you can stay detached. Sometimes the strongest response is calm acknowledgement. Sometimes the strongest response is silence. Sometimes the strongest response is simply changing the subject. Powerful people do not debate every opinion, because opinions are endless, and emotional energy is limited. That's the key. Emotional detachment builds mystery. Another hidden advantage of detachment is mystery. People understand those who constantly explain themselves, but they are fascinated by those who remain composed. When you stop reacting emotionally, people start analyzing you. They wonder what you're thinking. They wonder how you remain calm. They try to understand you. And mystery creates psychological authority, because humans respect what they cannot easily read. When you control your emotions, you control the narrative. Again, remember the phrase: the calmer you are, the more powerful you appear.
The trap of emotional validation. Here is another dangerous habit: seeking emotional validation. Many people want others to confirm their feelings. They want agreement, support, reassurance. But when your emotional stability depends on others, you give away your authority. Your mood becomes dependent on outside opinions. Your confidence becomes dependent on approval. That is not power. That is dependency. You don't need their permission to feel confident. You don't need their permission to remain calm. You don't need their permission to walk away from drama. You have a choice. Always. It's not about sensitivity. It's about self-control. Training emotional detachment. Emotional detachment is not automatic. It is trained, like a muscle. And the training starts with awareness. Step 1. Notice emotional triggers. Pay attention to situations that instantly provoke you. Criticism, disrespect, rejection, judgment. These triggers are your emotional weak points. Step 2. Slow down reactions. Practice the pause. Even a few seconds changes everything. Step 3. Detach from ego. Many emotional reactions come from ego defense. Someone questions you, and your ego wants to prove them wrong. But powerful people understand something simple. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Not every insult needs revenge. Not every opinion needs debate. You have a choice. Step 4. Control body language. Calm posture. Relaxed breathing. The silent confidence of detachment. Emotionally detached individuals carry a different energy. They do not rush. They do not panic. They do not chase approval. They move slowly. Speak carefully. Observe deeply. This energy communicates confidence without saying a word. People feel it. They sense it. Because emotional stability is rare, and rare traits command respect. You don't need to dominate conversations. You don't need to prove intelligence. You don't need to win every debate. Sometimes your greatest strength is a calm presence. Again, repeat the rule. The calmer you are, the more powerful you appear. When detachment is most important. Detachment matters most in difficult moments. Conflict, insults, disrespect, pressure. Anyone can appear calm when things are easy, but true authority appears during tension. When others panic, you remain steady. When others argue, you remain composed.
When others chase validation, you remain independent. And people notice. Always. Calmness during chaos signals leadership. Emotional control signals strength. And strength attracts respect. You have a choice. React emotionally or respond strategically. That's the key.
The freedom of emotional independence. There is another reward for emotional detachment. Freedom. When you stop reacting to every opinion, you reclaim mental space. You stop carrying unnecessary emotional weight. You stop replaying conversations in your head. You stop proving yourself to people who don't matter. Life becomes simpler, quieter, focused, because your attention returns to things that actually matter. Your goals, your growth, your direction. Not random opinions, not pointless drama, not emotional manipulation. You don't need their permission to move forward. The final lesson. Authority does not come from aggression. It comes from control. Control of speech, control of reaction, control of emotion. Emotionally react.
The mystery effect. Most people talk too much. They explain too much. They reveal too much. They believe that constant explanation builds connection. But the opposite is often true. Oversharing weakens your presence. Oversharing reduces intrigue. Oversharing lowers perceived status. Because when people know everything about you, there is nothing left to discover. Nothing left to imagine. Nothing left to respect. But when you reveal less, something interesting happens. People become curious. They start paying attention. They start analyzing your words. They start wondering what you are thinking. And curiosity is powerful, because the human mind hates unanswered questions. That's the foundation of what we call the mystery effect. And the rule is simple. The less people know, the more they imagine. That's the key. Why mystery creates power? Human psychology works predictably. People value what feels rare. They respect what feels controlled. And they become curious about what they cannot fully understand. When someone talks endlessly about their life, their plans, their emotions, their struggles, their secrets, there is nothing mysterious left. Everything is visible. Everything is predictable. Everything is exposed. But mystery changes the dynamic. When you reveal only what is necessary, people start filling the gaps with their imagination. And imagination often elevates your status far more than reality ever could. You have a choice. Reveal everything or control the narrative. That's the key. The oversharing trap. Let's be honest. Most people overshare, especially today. Social media encourages it. People document everything. Their breakfast, their arguments, their relationship problems, their insecurities,
their frustrations. They turn their private life into public entertainment. And then they wonder why others stop respecting them. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Oversharing signals emotional neediness. It signals a craving for validation. It signals a lack of self-control. And people subconsciously notice it. They may still listen. They may still react. But their perception of you changes. Authority disappears. Mystery disappears. Respect fades. You don't need their permission to keep parts of your life private. Remember that.
Silence builds intrigue. Silence creates curiosity. When you don't reveal everything, people start asking questions. They observe you more closely. They listen more carefully. They analyze your actions. Why? Because humans are natural investigators. We want to understand what we cannot immediately explain. And when someone remains partially unknown, our attention increases. That's why mysterious individuals often attract more respect. Not because they are louder, not because they are more impressive, but because they are less predictable. And unpredictability creates fascination. You have a choice. Explain everything, or let curiosity do the work for you. That's the key. Leaders understand the mystery effect. Look at powerful leaders, influential figures, high-level executives. They rarely reveal everything they think. They rarely expose every plan. They rarely explain every decision. They speak selectively, carefully, strategically. Why? Because information is power, and power is weakened when it is constantly broadcast. The most respected individuals control what they reveal. They understand something most people ignore. Mystery creates authority. When people cannot easily read you, they assume depth. They assume intelligence. They assume confidence. And assumptions shape reputation. Again, remember the rule. The less people know, the more they imagine. Leaders understand the mystery effect. Look at powerful leaders, influential figures, high-level executives. They rarely reveal everything they think. They rarely expose every plan. They rarely explain every decision. They speak selectively, carefully, strategically. Why? Because information is power, and power is weakened when it is constantly broadcast. The most respected individuals control what they reveal. They understand something most people ignore. Mystery creates authority. When people cannot easily read you, they assume depth. They assume intelligence. They assume confidence. And assumptions shape reputation. Again, remember the rule. The less people know, the more they imagine. Celebrities and influential personalities, the most respected ones, rarely share every detail of their lives. They reveal just enough. Enough to stay relevant. Enough to maintain a connection. But never enough to remove intrigue. Because intrigue keeps people watching. It keeps people talking. It keeps people interested.
Contrast that with individuals who constantly broadcast their personal lives, every relationship, every emotional moment, every problem. Eventually, the audience becomes bored, because nothing is hidden, nothing is mysterious. Everything becomes predictable, and predictability reduces fascination. You have a choice. Become an open book, or become someone people want to understand. That's the key. This principle is not limited to celebrities. It applies to everyday situations. Work, friendships, social circles, even family environments. People who constantly explain themselves lose authority. People who constantly defend their...
The power of controlled information. Every detail you reveal shapes how others perceive you. So you must learn to control it. Not through deception, through discipline. You decide what to reveal. You decide what to keep private. You decide when something deserves explanation and when silence is stronger. Most people reveal information impulsively. They talk to fill the silence. They explain to avoid judgment. They overshare to create a connection. But powerful individuals understand something important. Connection does not require exposure. Respect does not require explanation. You have a choice. Speak impulsively or speak strategically. That's the key.
The psychological effect of mystery. When someone cannot easily read you, they assume complexity. They assume intelligence. They assume confidence. This is a powerful psychological bias. Humans naturally respect people they do not fully understand, not because those people are superior, but because the unknown creates perceived depth. When you constantly explain your thoughts, people stop wondering about you. But when you remain selective, your presence gains weight. Your words gain attention. Your silence gains meaning. The less people know, the more they imagine. Stop explaining everything. One of the most powerful habits you can develop is simple. Stop explaining everything. Not every decision needs justification. Not every action needs clarification. Not every silence needs filling. When someone asks a question, answer briefly, directly. Then stop talking. Most people ruin their authority by continuing to talk. They keep explaining, adding details, reassuring others, trying to be understood. But the more they speak, mystery protects your energy. Another benefit of mystery is protection. When people know everything about your plans, your struggles, your weaknesses, they can use that information against you. They can criticize it, mock it, sabotage it, or discourage it. But when you keep your plans private, you protect them. When you keep your goals quiet, you protect your focus. When you keep your emotions controlled,
you protect your stability. Silence becomes a shield. Privacy becomes strength. You don't need their permission to move quietly.
Practical discipline, creating mystery. Mystery is not natural for many people. It requires discipline. Here are practical habits to develop it. First habit: speak less than you normally would. Not silence, just reduction. Answer questions clearly, then stop. Second habit: keep plans private. Announcing goals invites unnecessary opinions. Progress quietly instead. Third habit: control emotional expression. You don't need to broadcast every feeling. Emotion can exist without exposure. Fourth habit: avoid constant social updates. Not every moment needs documentation. Privacy builds intrigue. Fifth habit: let others talk more. When people speak more than you do, they reveal themselves, while you remain difficult to read. That's the key.
The confidence behind mystery. Mystery only works when it comes from confidence, not insecurity, not fear. Confident people are comfortable with silence. They do not panic when conversations pause. They do not rush to fill space. They remain composed, calm, observant. This calm presence creates psychological weight. People start paying attention when you speak, because you speak less frequently. Your words gain value. Your opinions gain attention. Your silence gains meaning. You have a choice: talk constantly or speak with intention.
When mystery becomes influence, eventually something interesting happens. When you reveal less, people start projecting their own assumptions onto you. They assume competence. They assume intelligence. They assume confidence. Not because you announced it, but because you didn't need to announce it. That is the power of controlled presence. Your reputation grows without constant explanation. Your authority increases without constant defense. Your influence expands quietly. All because you learned a simple discipline: restraint. It's not about being secretive. It's about being intentional. That's the key.
The final lesson. The modern world rewards noise, constant posting, constant talking, constant explaining. But real power often lives in the opposite direction: control, restraint, mystery. When you reveal less, people become curious. When you speak selectively, people listen carefully. When you move quietly, people start paying attention. Remember the rule: the less people know, the more they imagine. And imagination often builds a stronger reputation than endless explanation. You have a choice. Expose every detail of your life, or protect your presence with discipline. You don't need their permission to remain private. You don't need their permission to stay mysterious. You only need the discipline to stop oversharing. That's the key. Because mystery leads naturally to the next level of psychological strength. Distance. Sometimes the most powerful move is not speaking less, but stepping back entirely. You learned how mystery builds intrigue. Now it's time to understand how distance builds respect.
Ignore manipulation, and it loses power. Manipulative people are everywhere. At work, in your family, in your friendships, even online. They are masters of pulling strings you don't even know exist. They know which buttons to press, which insecurities to target, which fears to exploit. And they rely on one predictable fact: people react. The moment you react, you give them control. The moment you let guilt, anger, or fear influence your decision, they win. This chapter is about breaking that pattern, about reclaiming control, about refusing to feed the fire. Because there is one unbreakable principle you must remember. What you refuse to react to loses its power. That's the key.
How manipulators feed. Manipulators feed on energy. They thrive on your attention, your anxiety, your frustration. They are emotional vampires. They create chaos and feed on your reaction. It might start small. A passive-aggressive comment at work. A family member is trying to make you feel guilty. A friend who subtly undermines you. Most people respond immediately. They justify. They defend. They argue. And the manipulator gets exactly what they wanted. Engagement. You have a choice. React automatically or respond deliberately. The illusion of pressure. Manipulators use pressure tactics because they work on the untrained mind. They guilt you. After all I've done for you, how can you say no? They create drama. You'll regret it if you don't follow my advice. They attack your emotions. Why are you always so cold? Why don't you care? And most people panic. They give in. They justify. They explain. They surrender. But here's the truth. Their power exists only in your reaction. Ignore it, and it evaporates. Emotional discipline neutralizes manipulation. The first step is emotional discipline. You must separate the manipulator's words from your decisions. Their comments are a test. Their drama is a trap. Their guilt is a lever. And you have two choices. Fall for it, or remain calm. Remaining calm does not mean being weak. It does not mean being passive. It means being deliberate. Observe the manipulation. Notice it.
Real-world examples. Workplace. A colleague tries to pressure you into doing their work. They use subtle threats. If you don't handle this, the project will fail, and everyone will blame you. Most people panic and say yes, but a disciplined individual pauses, evaluates, and responds strategically. I'm focused on my responsibilities. I won't take that on right now. Notice the difference. No guilt, no drama, just calm authority. Family. A relative tries to make you feel guilty for your life choices. You never visit enough. You're selfish. Most react defensively. They argue. They over-explain. A person practicing emotional control responds minimally or not at all. Silence removes their leverage. Social media. Someone posts criticism designed to provoke you. The first instinct is outrage, rebuttal, argument. But when you ignore it, the manipulator's power disappears. They feed on reactions. Without reaction, the drama dies. The principle of non-reaction. This principle is simple, but often ignored. If it provokes you, and it doesn't matter, do not react. That is the essence of power. Every manipulation relies on engagement. Remove engagement, and manipulation collapses. You don't need to respond to every comment. You don't need to justify every choice. You don't need to explain yourself to every person. Your calm, your detachment, your refusal to be manipulated. It signals authority. You have a choice. React or resist. That's the key. Recognizing manipulation. You cannot ignore manipulation if you cannot recognize it. Manipulators often use guilt trips, apply emotional pressure, twist facts or situations, threaten or imply consequences, create unnecessary urgency. The moment you notice these patterns, you can interrupt them. Awareness is the first defense. Discipline is the second. It's not about avoiding people. It's about refusing to give control to those who don't deserve it. Tools to neutralize manipulation. 1. Pause before reacting. Don't respond immediately. Let the emotional charge fade. Ask yourself, does this matter? Most manipulations fail when you wait. 2. Why ignoring works. Ignoring manipulation does more than neutralize the individual. It changes the dynamic. When people realize they cannot provoke you, they stop trying.
They lose interest. They look elsewhere for leverage. Your calm becomes a shield. Your discipline becomes authority. Manipulation only works when you feed it. Stop feeding it, and it collapses on its own. Repetition for retention. Let's repeat this principle. What you refuse to react to loses its power. What you refuse to react to loses its power. What you refuse to react to loses its power. Repeat it until it becomes instinct. Every trigger you encounter, apply it. Every comment designed to provoke, apply it. Every attempt at guilt or pressure, apply it. You have a choice. You can surrender control, or you can reclaim it. That's the key.
Mastery requires practice. Ignoring manipulation is a skill. Like any skill, it requires practice. Start small. Notice manipulative comments at work or online. Pause before responding. Observe your emotional reaction. Respond calmly or not at all. Then scale up. Apply it in family situations. Apply it with friends. Apply it in high-pressure environments. Over time, your default reaction shifts. You stop giving energy to those who seek to control you. You stop playing someone else's game. And power becomes your natural state. The transformation. Imagine living like this. No guilt trips control you. No emotional pressure shakes your focus. No manipulative comments steal your energy. You move calmly. You respond deliberately. You control the situation, even without aggression. People notice. They respect you. They fear attempting manipulation. All because you refused to react. All because you understood a simple rule. What you refuse to react to loses its power. You have a choice. React and surrender control, or ignore and reclaim authority. Linking back to the theme, this principle connects directly to everything we've covered so far. Attention is valuable. Don't give it to manipulators. Emotional detachment builds authority. Silence and mystery create influence. Manipulation loses power when you combine these lessons. Control your attention. Control your emotions. Control your reactions. When you master this, you are no longer a victim of anyone's drama. You control your life. You control your presence. You control your energy. And that control is the foundation for true respect.
Strategic absence increases your value. Most people misunderstand presence. They believe being constantly available proves value. They check messages immediately. They say yes to every request. They attend every event, every meeting, every gathering. They think this makes them indispensable. It doesn't. It does the opposite. Constant presence breeds familiarity, and familiarity breeds complacency. Complacency breeds undervaluation. When you are always available, people stop noticing your contribution. They stop appreciating your time. They stop respecting your boundaries. You have a choice. Remain constantly present and slowly lose perceived value, or step back strategically and reclaim authority. That's the key. Why absence creates value. Humans are wired to recognize scarcity. Scarcity signals importance. Scarcity commands attention. When someone is rare, limited, or selective, their presence becomes meaningful. When someone is everywhere all the time, their value diminishes. Strategic absence exploits this natural psychology. By stepping back, you create a pause, a gap, a space where people are forced to realize what they bring to the table. They suddenly notice the projects you handled, the energy you contributed, the calm leadership you brought to chaos. And they realize, we took this person for granted. That is the power of strategic absence.
The workplace example. Think about work environments. You are overextending yourself. You respond immediately to emails. You help colleagues constantly. You attend every optional meeting. You say yes to every task. At first, it feels productive. At first, you feel indispensable. But over time, something shifts. People stop noticing. People stop appreciating. People expect you to give more without acknowledgement.
Strategic absence in relationships. This principle applies to personal relationships as well. Friends, partners, family. Constant availability can backfire. If you are always present, you answer every call, you accommodate every request, you reveal yourself constantly. People get used to it. They take it for granted. But when you step back strategically, you limit availability. You create space for others to reflect. You allow them to realize your importance. Absence creates curiosity. Absence creates appreciation. Absence creates respect. You have a choice. Be constantly present and slowly lose influence, or withdraw strategically and reset perception. That's the key.
The subtle art of stepping back. Strategic absence is subtle. It is not ignoring responsibilities. It is not abandoning relationships. It is not being passive or indifferent. It is carefully withdrawing energy and attention
where it is not required. Example: at work, you might stop volunteering for tasks that others can handle. Example: in social circles, you might skip minor gatherings while maintaining core presence. Example: in family dynamics, you might stop over-explaining or constantly accommodating. The withdrawal is intentional, not reactive, not emotional, not passive-aggressive. Intentional absence sends a message without words. I am valuable. I am selective. My presence matters. How absence changes perception. People often undervalue what is always present. They fail to notice effort that is constant. They fail to notice contributions that are always available. Absence creates contrast. The gap you leave highlights your impact. Your work, your attention, your energy, suddenly seen in relief against the void. Humans naturally appreciate what is rare. The more they are deprived, the more they notice. And this is exactly what strategic absence exploits. You have a choice. Remain everywhere, all the time, slowly fading into the background. Or step back, reset attention, and increase perceived value. That's the key.
Practical steps for strategic absence. 1. Evaluate where your energy goes. Identify situations, tasks, and people that drain attention without meaningful return. Ask, does my presence here increase respect or reduce it? 2. Step back gradually. Begin with minor withdrawals. Stop overextending in low-priority areas. Observe how others respond. 3. Maintain core presence. Absence is strategic, not complete. Stay visible in areas that matter: leadership, impact, priorities. 4. Avoid over-explaining. Do not justify your withdrawal. Silence strengthens the effect. Curiosity naturally increases value. 5. Observe reactions. Notice when absence is felt. Use that awareness to calibrate boundaries and availability. The psychological mechanism. Why does strategic absence work? 1. Scarcity principle. Humans value what is limited. Abundance diminishes perceived worth. 2. Contrast effect. Stepping back highlights what was previously taken for granted. Your contributions become visible against the vacuum. 3. Curiosity and reflection. Absence forces reflection. People notice patterns, contributions, and qualities they overlooked. 4. Perceived authority. Selective presence signals control. Control signals value. All of these combine to raise your perceived worth. You have a choice. Be present constantly and lose weight. Or step back strategically and regain authority. That's the key. Real-world transformation. Imagine this scenario. You are a top performer at work. You have been overextending for months. Your contributions are quietly keeping the team afloat. But nobody notices. Nobody appreciates. One day, you implement strategic absence. You stop taking on extra work unnecessarily. You stop answering emails immediately. You allow others to handle minor tasks. Suddenly, leadership notices performance gaps. Colleagues recognize your efforts. Your strategic contribution becomes visible. Your influence grows. All because you withdrew selectively. All because absence recalibrated perception. Strategic absence in social influence. In social situations, the same rule applies. Avoid constant availability. Avoid excessive communication. Avoid explaining or justifying every choice. Instead, be selective in your presence.
Common misconceptions. Misconception 1. Absence is selfish. Reality. Absence is strategic. Purpose. Reset perception. Increase value. Preserve energy. Misconception 2. People will forget you. Reality. Humans remember what impacts them. The absence highlights your contributions more than constant presence ever could. Misconception 3. You must explain your absence. Reality. Silence strengthens the effect. Curiosity naturally draws recognition. Building long-term respect. Strategic absence is not a one-time tactic. It is a long-term approach. When applied consistently, your presence gains weight. Your contributions are acknowledged. Your energy is preserved. Your authority grows naturally. It is not manipulation. It is self-discipline. It is the art of managing perception while protecting your own resources. You have a choice. Be everywhere all the time and lose perceived value, or step back intentionally and increase influence. That's the key. Summary. Constant presence reduces perceived value. Strategic absence increases it. The less you are available, the more attention your presence receives. The more attention your presence receives, the more authority you gain. By stepping back, you force recognition. By limiting availability, you protect energy. By controlling presence, you control perception. You have a choice. Overextend and fade into the background, or withdraw strategically and reclaim authority. Remember this principle. It will transform how others perceive you. It will amplify your influence. It will strengthen your presence. Strategic absence is not about leaving. It's about showing that your presence matters more than ever. You learned how mystery creates intrigue. Now, you will learn the final principle to complete the cycle of influence.
Master the discipline of selective attention. Here it is, the final principle, the one that ties everything together. Ignoring people is not a blunt weapon. It's not about shutting everyone out. It's not about being cold or indifferent to the world. The ultimate skill is selective attention. Because ignoring the wrong things accomplishes nothing. Ignoring opportunities, growth, or relationships that matter is self-sabotage. That is not power. That is weakness disguised as discipline. The true mastery is in choosing what deserves your focus. You have a choice. You can scatter your attention everywhere, or you can invest it where it counts. That's the key. Why attention is a finite resource. Your attention is a limited resource. You only have so much energy in a day. You only have so many hours. You only have so much mental focus. When you give it to trivial arguments, petty criticism, or unnecessary drama, you deplete your energy. You dilute your influence. You reduce your ability to act in the areas that matter. Every distraction you engage with steals from your growth. Every reaction you give to someone who does not deserve it diminishes you.
So, how do you know what deserves your focus? There are 3 categories to prioritize. 1. Growth. Skills, knowledge, and experiences that elevate your life. Learning a new skill. Developing a career advantage. Strengthening mental or physical resilience. Anything that adds long-term value. 2. Opportunity. Situations that move you closer to your goals. Networking with strategic individuals. Projects that advance your career. Ventures that increase your influence or wealth. Three. Meaningful relationships. People who lift you, challenge you positively, and respect your boundaries. Family members who contribute to your growth. Friends who inspire and support. Mentors and colleagues who invest in your development. Everything outside these areas is secondary. It's not worth your mental energy. You don't need their permission to ignore it.
The cost of misplaced attention. Most people waste attention on distractions, gossip, drama, social media arguments, criticism from people who do not matter, toxic relationships. Every second spent here is a second stolen from your growth. Every argument engaged is an energy transfer from you to them. Every distraction weakens focus and authority. And most people do this unconsciously. They think attention is unlimited. They believe they can handle everything at once. They are wrong. You have a choice. Spend attention everywhere and lose control. Spend attention selectively and dominate your life. That's the key. Selective ignoring as a tool. Now let's put it into practice. Selective ignoring is not passive. It's deliberate. It's conscious. You decide what deserves focus. You decide what is irrelevant. You decide where your energy flows. If someone tries to provoke you, ignore them. If someone criticizes unfairly, ignore it. If social media is wasting your focus, ignore it. But don't ignore what contributes to your goals.
Don't ignore opportunities that expand influence. Don't ignore people who elevate your life. Selectivity transforms energy into results. Random attention dilutes power. Intentional attention amplifies it. You have a choice. Ignore everything indiscriminately and gain nothing. Ignore strategically and gain authority, growth, and control. That's the key.
The role of boundaries. Boundaries are critical in mastering selective attention. You must create limits around time, energy, focus. Without boundaries, even selective ignoring fails. People will demand attention. Tasks will crowd your focus. Drama will infiltrate your day. Boundaries protect your attention. Boundaries amplify your discipline. Boundaries create leverage. Say no when it matters. Step back when it's necessary. Focus on growth, opportunity, and meaningful relationships. That is discipline in action. Real-world example. Career. Consider the high achiever in a corporate environment. They focus on projects that impact revenue. They prioritize meetings with decision-makers. They avoid office gossip. They ignore petty arguments. At first, colleagues may notice the absence. They may test boundaries. But over time, results speak. The high achiever's selective focus allows them to finish important work faster. Their projects succeed. Their reputation grows. They gain respect because they were disciplined in attention. Meanwhile, those who react to every distraction burn out. They achieve less. They are noticed less. They are respected less. Selective attention is the differentiator. Real-world example. Personal life. In relationships, selective attention is equally powerful. Instead of reacting to every criticism, complaint, or drama, focus on meaningful communication. Focus on relationships that build mutual respect. Ignore trivial complaints or unnecessary tension. The energy saved allows investment in experiences that matter. Your personal life becomes richer. Your presence becomes more valued. Your respect increases. You have a choice. React to everything and waste energy. Selectively invest attention and build influence. That's the key. Common pitfalls. First, false multitasking. Trying to focus on everything leads to scattered attention. Distraction diminishes growth. Second, emotional traps. Reacting to insults or manipulations consumes focus unnecessarily. Always ask, does this deserve my attention? Third, social pressure. Others expect instant responses, constant availability, or engagement in drama. Your discipline is tested daily. Boundaries reinforce selective attention.
Techniques to cultivate selective attention. 1. Daily prioritization. List what truly matters in your day. Assign time to growth, opportunity, and meaningful relationships. 2. Energy audit. Track where attention goes. Eliminate activities that drain without adding value. 3. Mindful awareness. Notice emotional triggers. Question: does this deserve my focus? 4. Intentional ignoring. Practice not reacting to provocation. Practice not engaging in trivial matters. 5. Reinforce the habit. Repeat daily. Selectivity becomes instinct over time. You have a choice. Scatter attention and burn out. Focus selectively and amplify power. That's the key.
The power of repetition. Repeat this until it becomes instinct. Your life improves the moment you become selective with your attention. Your life improves the moment you become selective with your attention. Your life improves the moment you become selective with your attention. Every choice about where your attention goes is a step toward mastery. Every moment you refuse to react unnecessarily is a victory. Every day you invest in growth, opportunity, and meaningful relationships compounds your influence.
Final transformation. Imagine your life fully disciplined in attention. You no longer engage in pointless arguments. You no longer waste energy on people who drain you. You no longer feel obligated to explain, justify, or overextend. Your priorities are clear. Your energy is protected. Your growth is accelerated. Your influence is undeniable. This is not a theory. This is practice. Remember this. Respect does not come from pleasing everyone. It does not come from explaining yourself endlessly. And it certainly does not come from chasing attention. Respect comes from control. Control of your emotions, control of your reactions, and most importantly, control of your attention. Because attention is power. The moment you stop giving your attention to every critic, every manipulator, every distraction, your value rises automatically. People start noticing the silence. They start noticing your distance. They start wondering why you are no longer reacting. And that curiosity becomes respect. So here is the challenge. Starting today, stop reacting to things that don't deserve you. Stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided not to understand you. Stop giving your time, your energy, and your focus to people who treat it like it's worthless. Instead, guard your attention like it is the most valuable.
The role of boundaries. Boundaries are critical in mastering selective attention. You must create limits around time, energy, focus. Without boundaries, even selective ignoring fails. People will demand attention. Tasks will crowd your focus. Drama will infiltrate your day. Boundaries protect your attention. Boundaries amplify your discipline. Boundaries create leverage. Say no when it matters. Step back when it's necessary. Focus on growth, opportunity, and meaningful relationships. That is discipline in action. Real-world example. Career. Consider the high achiever in a corporate environment. They focus on projects that impact revenue. They prioritize meetings with decision-makers. They avoid office gossip. They ignore petty arguments. At first, colleagues may notice the absence. They may test boundaries. But over time, results speak. The high achiever's selective focus allows them to finish important work faster. Their projects succeed. Their reputation grows. They gain respect because they were disciplined in attention. Meanwhile, those who react to every distraction burn out. They achieve less. They are noticed less. They are respected less. Selective attention is the differentiator.